Hey everyone, this is Ermis from the future. Here's a quick disclaimer. You're about to hear an episode that was recorded 10 days ago in December 2025, so it does not have the craziness of the world that has happened in the past few days, including the US invading Venezuela and the reality of the year starting right now. So this is me on a Sunday, 4th of January, right before that Monday hits, right before work starts, right before everything goes into motion after a well-deserved short break that I hope everyone had. So as you cruise through that, enjoy listening an episode recorded in the last 10 days of December from a more relaxing and innocent place and time. Hi, hello, and welcome to yet another Expat. This is episode 80. Wow. We've made it this far, and this is one I am recording at an unknown time to be released when I know I will not have time to do the recording. It's still the holidays. It's still December. It's close to New Year's Eve, and I'm running as far away as I can from Berlin because as New Year's in Berlin is a war zone filled with fireworks that far extend the normal, legal, socially acceptable numbers, decibels, any sort of metric you could put around what is okay to do with fireworks. Berlin by far surpasses that every year. Very intense to be around. And so I am not around. Now, as always, I hope you're doing great and you're somewhere warm with a hot cup of tea or chocolate or glühwein or whatever fills your cup these days. I hope you don't have a lot of things to do and you're still enjoying some of that quieter time. It's a little bit more quiet usually at work. It can be very intense with family and socials. So I just wish you have the right balance for that. And the fact that you are having time for listening to a podcast likely means that you either do or that you are, as always, procrastinating, which is something I am grateful for because this podcast is a great companion to procrastinating, commuting, household tasks, running, jogging, and all of that. So sit back and relax while I go through some of the main topics of the previous weeks that I wanted to share with you. Now, the first one comes from Spotify, the place we love and hate at the same time. This podcast is on Spotify, but at the same time, we have times and times again mentioned the problematic sides of the platform, from how it treats artists and the royalties and the commissions they get, all the way to the CEO and where else he's investing his money, parentheses, in AI military companies. So here's what happened. A hacktivist group, comes from activists and hackers, is called Anna's Archive, and what they've done is that they have scraped the entire Spotify library. The entire library, 86 million audio files plus the metadata, more than 99% of the platform has been downloaded and backed up and is available for people to pirate if they want. They are framing this as a preservation archive. So basically they're saying we just got a huge backup of the entire Spotify and we are putting it out there. Spotify did confirm that this has happened and has disabled the accounts that people use to do that, saying it's working on added safeguard to defend creators' rights. And people love this. People love that there is a backup of the entire thing. Of course, record label companies and most of the people who hold the rights, they see it as piracy. The group itself says, hey, this is cultural preservation. It's an act of cultural preservation. They've put it on torrent for everyone to download. And I have to say, for me, it does give me this digital Robin Hood energy. I come from the early days of the internet. I come from the real Pirate Bay era and all of that. So I'm now paying subscriptions everywhere. So I see a blurry line between able to have content for free and then the moment that you are able to pay for it, then you also do that. And yeah, the Game of Thrones, do you remember the craziness around that? The creators themselves said, when asked about piracy, because the Game of Thrones was shown on HBO one night and then 4 hours later was ready on a torrent for everyone to download on the piracy websites, they literally said, we don't think that our show would have been as successful if it couldn't also be shared through piracy, so we're fine with it. If people want to find a way to see something or hear something or read something, they should have free access to information, especially when it is something cultural, something scientific. So I don't condone this action, but if you didn't know, now Spotify just got backed up, the entire Spotify, by these activists called Anna's Archive. It also reminds me a little bit a story I had reported many podcasts ago about how some people built a library inside Minecraft servers. Minecraft is a game. You must know Minecraft by now. And there was this news story that Reporters Without Borders, this is another activist group, Reporters Without Borders, they built a library inside the game, calling it the Uncensored Library, and it was a real giant virtual space in Minecraft, a huge library that stored banned journalism and censored texts and censored books, so people in restrictive countries could access it. Now imagine that you are in, you're in North Korea playing Minecraft, or you're in China just playing this Minecraft game, and through the game, someone has created a real library in the game with real books that you can read that your country has censored. I found that an amazing example of activism at the time. That project used Minecraft books and an open server map so readers could explore articles that would have been blocked by authorities, basically turning the game into a loophole for free information. So this example just reminded me a little bit of the Spotify part. Not a direct connection. It's old news, but still relevant, because it's a very neat example of creative digital resistance. Now, in other news, we're jumping into deep science. There's been a big breakthrough that the next time you hear about it, you will say, oh, I know this already. I heard it at a podcast. And this is the fact that quantum computing was made possible at room temperature. So this is wild, because one of the long-standing quantum tech limitations has been the need for ultra-cold environments. These machines can only operate almost close to absolute zero, which is very expensive to make, very energy demanding, and it just increases the whole cost and complexity to try and do quantum tech computing. But now this might be changing, because researchers managed to build devices that can operate quantum states, so entanglements and spins and all of those quantum states, at room temperature, which could be huge for being able to scale quantum systems. Now you will ask, what will happen if we scale quantum computing? And this is a whole different era. Encryptions would probably cease to exist as we know them, and most of the current security protocols need to be relooked at, but this is something that is already being looked at. But a lot of cool things, a lot of computational stuff, answering questions of the cosmos and the world could get a very big boost with quantum computing. So what happened? There are some new platforms that use a nanoscale optical trick with special materials and are able to entangle particles without the need of supercooling them, moving research closer to practical quantum components. So if the quantum tech gets cheaper and more available, we will have this crazy leap from cryptography to AI, all the way to a computing level that we have only seen in sci-fi level movies. Maybe the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy will be able to ask a computer, what's the meaning of life, the universe, and everything, only to get the answer 42 once again. Now, staying in the world of science and computing, this is another interesting thing I found. This is a bit more early stage, so we need to see how well it goes and if it happens. So one thing is that the scientific research that is available in the world is prominently in English. There is a lot of science research happening in other pockets of the world, but predominantly it's English. Now, a problem that exists is that the Chinese research is also a huge pool of knowledge. However, they don't publish in English. And translating research papers is something that is very cumbersome to do and extremely expensive until some years ago. So right now, there is a project that has launched that will use AI to translate the entire corpus of Chinese scientific research into English. And this is something that happens for the first time. We're talking about thousands and thousands of papers. The entire scientific corpus of Chinese research will be translated into English. And this is big because China is also doing research and innovating, but all that knowledge hasn't been so easily accessible. So it could be one of the first large pushes of flipping the direction of global research flow. Instead of being just English to others, now non-English innovation will become visible to the West and the rest of the world. I find this a very amazing project because just a few years ago, this would have taken millions and millions to do and thousands of people working. You would basically need an entire State Department tasked with this job and taking forever. And now, with the use of AI, there are specific LLMs that are really good at translating scientific stuff. I don't remember the name of the one this project is using, but it's a known one, and the results are in the acceptable space. So here's the question. What do you think the cost is in computational power to use AI to translate, again, the entire corpus of Chinese scientific research into English? So I will tell you, it is $25,000. This price is a joke. $25,000 for all the computational power. So this is a project that someone started, got the funding immediately, and will now be happening. I will try to follow it. I don't know what could happen when decades of Chinese research are suddenly accessible to everyone. Will it shift innovation power or democratize science? Maybe not, maybe nothing happens, but definitely very interesting use of the power we have today in our hands with the right use of AI and the computational power the machines are able to give. And I still remember, I don't know who said that. I think it was a US person I was talking to, that there is this saying, a little bit annoying, but I guess it has a lot of truth in it. US innovates, China imitates, and EU regulates. You can only laugh about the last part. EU does regulate a lot. But this has been the dynamic, right? US innovates and China imitates. But we're seeing many leaps from the Chinese side in terms of tech and science, whether it is their pursuit to be able to have their own chip technology and make their own processing chips, to the AI race, to the space race, and all of that. So it could be that China does innovate as well. They definitely do in many areas. Electric cars are making a boost and all of that. So this project to translate all of the research available is one that could help the world go forward. And hopefully this saying, US innovates, China imitates, EU regulates, could get a small shake. Now, here are two more topics that I found interesting. In the craziness of what's happening in the US politics today, here's one thing that I find just plain stupid. The US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, needed a change. He needed a change in the State Department, and he looked at everything that is there, and he found the thing that needs to be changed. And that is the font that they are using in all of the diplomatic communications and all of the State Department texts. He decided that this font needs to be no more and should be discontinued, and all of the things that are printed and made need to be ditched, and the new font to be there. What was the font? It was the Calibri font. Which font does he want to use? The Times New Roman, one of the most ugly fonts to read. Now what he decided is that Calibri as a font was a wasteful diversity policy. Why? Because Calibri is voted as one of the easiest fonts to read. It's being used everywhere, not just in the State Department and in advertisement, in text. If you have a lot of text to read, it's helpful for your eyes to have a font that doesn't have corners and everything everywhere. So he found that a wasteful diversity policy. Diverse to who? To people who read? And he decided that the Times New Roman better restores the decorum and professionalism of federal documents. It sounds like someone who never had to read 1,000 words page written in Times New Roman. This move basically reverses a change that was done under Biden, who had adopted Calibri, and adopting Calibri is partly for accessibility reasons, but you don't have to be half blind to suffer from reading huge texts of Times New Roman. This is just making it easier for everyone to read, but he changed it. Times New Roman everywhere, both internal and external diplomatic correspondence. I think in the way that they have been running the State Department and the diplomatic correspondence in particular, maybe Comic Sans would be a more fitting font. But of course, this is not about typography, right? They're trying to find everything they can in a battleground between traditionalism and modern accessibility. And Calibri was initially chosen because it has a simpler style and it's easier to read on screens. It also helps people with visual impairments. But that was seen as excessive DEI. And I don't know what's more tragic in the gazillion of things that they could be working on, wasting everyone's time, focus, and money on changing the font maybe reflects misplaced priorities. Was that really where you put the line, where you need to make people work hours, spend millions in pushing a change? But anyway, this happened. Very happy that they're solving such important matters over the other side of the Atlantic. And let's end this one with a lovely piece of news. I don't know if it is an example of malicious compliance, if it is a top peak of incompetence and stupidity, or if it is an act of geniusness. It could be either. So here's what's actually happening. Epstein Files, you've heard about them. They have been reluctant to release anything. They got pushed from different sites. Trump had promised that he's going to release everything in his campaign. After he got elected, the whole thing turned around. He said, there's nothing to see there. It's all a hoax, and all sorts of ridiculous justifications. Very clear that he's trying to cover something. And after a lot of pressure and some legal technicalities, they were forced to release thousands of pages of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein under the new Epstein Files Transparency Act. However, at least 550 pages in that initial release were completely redacted. Each page was covered with thick black bars obscuring all text. Not even a word was showing. The internet went crazy. It looked like what's the point in even putting it out? People were making memes. They were putting their tax declarations fully covered with black as well and said, okay, I guess this is a valid document to show to the world. But a lot of these files, they had extensive sections blacked out or removed completely from the public DOJ webpage. There were photos that showed Donald Trump that were removed from the files, only to be added later after public outrage about this. And the victims themselves have said that they want justice, but the level of reduction that's supposedly done to protect them is just ridiculous. Now we get to the point of this. A lot of these documents are redacted. That means that the text is blocked. How you do that digitally, there is a proper way that you can redact the text. You have a PDF and you want to redact the text. Now, here's what happened. In many of these PDFs, the redaction was not done using the secure redaction tools that permanently remove the data. Instead, either through an act of rebellious geniusness or incompetence and sloppiness, the way they redacted was to just highlight in black color, which visually looks the same. You just see a black line, you don't see the text. But if you don't use the right way to redact, if you just use this placing a black box over the text or just highlighting it with black color, you visually don't see it. But the information is still there. It's still in the document. It just has been covered on top. It hasn't been redacted. It hasn't been made unavailable. So, independent researchers and social media users have found very simple ways to unredact these documents and to remove the highlight and basically read the entire thing. And I don't know. I think there is some beauty to that. Because yes, the DOJ, the Department of Justice, needs to redact some references to victims, but the victims say they want everything out. And many lawmakers on both sides have agreed that the scope of the redaction is excessive and arbitrary. There is a lot of tension because documents related to high-profile pictures and people like Trump or other presidents have been criticized to be very blurred and omitted, and overall a lack of transparency and bias. So basically this topic is to say that the redaction method that they use was amateurish at best, or that an insider just decided to do it this way in the hopes that then people can read what was behind. It does put definitely the talk around the importance of digital document security and how it really matters. But this is what happened. They released everything, they redacted so much, but they did it in the wrong way. And now people are able to unredact and one by one start putting back these documents. Now, I haven't read any of the documents. I barely have time to read headlines and experience life and bring you back some of it through this podcast. But if you do, let me know. You might be the ones to redact a very important piece of document. But you know what? I'll end this one here. I hope you enjoyed this news, tech, science heavy episode. Very unfitting, probably, to you enjoying nature and Christmas and the weather. But hey, lots of people will listen to this throughout the time. So this is a snapshot of where the world is right now. And yeah, wonder where it finds you and where you're at. But we're not getting existential in this one. We got too technical for that. I will see you in the next episode. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, pressing the buttons, sharing it with people, and enduring this time with me. I have been me, you have been you. I'm wishing you a lovely day ahead, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, ciao!